welcome back to another episode of True Spoken. Glad to have you. I'm Joe Statzer. I'm the Butler County Republican Party Executive Director. True Spoken is brought to you by the Butler County Republican Party, True Spoken Productions. Today we have a fantastic guest, State Representative Jennifer Gross. Jennifer is the state representative for the 52nd District, which includes pretty much southeastern Butler County, Westchester, Liberty Township, I think into Monroe, Fairfield Township, and she's a freshman who's running for re-election and has been very busy in the State House doing a lot of good conservative things. So, well, here we are, 10 months into the Biden administration. The liberals, the media, social media, all of Hollywood wanted Biden so bad. And what do we have now? A foreign policy mess in the Middle East, both China and Russia feeling empowered again, the beginnings of real inflation and a possible recession, gas prices literally going through the roof. We have infrastructure bills that we need, but they're failing in Congress because they are being weighed down with mindless expenditures on liberal wish list. We have no coherent policy initiatives and so on and so forth. And I must add, because the Biden giveaway policy that causes people to stay home and collect government money and not work has not worked at all, we might have to cancel Christmas. So with all those items stuck overseas or in our ports with no way to move them onto the store shelves, that old song, I'm getting nuttin' for Christmas, might have a real ring of truth this year. That's what Biden's brought us. But no presents at Christmas is not the only reason for lack of holiday cheer. You feel it as well as I do. The country continues to sink into real trouble. And what is our government doing about it? Well, don't hold your breath, because the only real thing liberals seem to committed to do these days is take away our freedoms. Over our nation's 245-year history, freedom has always been worth fighting for. Our nation has never been perfect, far from it. But we have always been the best hope of freedom, the truest form of democracy, the closest thing to a real republic in the world. We have always been steadfast and secure that America is truly the best beacon of hope for freedom on this planet. But the modern liberal point of view does not see freedom the same way. Liberal journalists are openly admitting that there is no need for fairness in the press anymore. Liberals are fine in saying that 5 school board members can better say what is right for your children than a parent can, and force you into laws that you don't agree with. They can close your churches, your beaches, your businesses, even your travel plans, but they can allow riots in churches and police precincts and threaten to take away your constitutional rights. That's what we have with the Biden administration. So we need to keep standing for freedom, because we still make up the majority in this country. Conservatives do. Yes, it looks like we've lost our mind right these days. France is even criticizing us for our lack of common sense and our crazy cancel culture. France is criticizing us. Don't believe this media or social media or Hollywood. They want you to believe that the liberal mindset is dominant. They want to control the message and the agenda. They're trying to tell you that this is the way of the future. But they are wrong. The majority of our country still wants our country back to normal, to that middle ground mindset, to conservative values and constitutional rights, to a strong democracy devoted to capitalism that works. Freedom is still worth fighting for, so don't buy the hype. Most of America still believes in America. In a moment, State Representative Jennifer Gross. And we are back on True Spoken, and we are very honored to have the state representative from the 52nd District here in Butler County, Jennifer Gross. Jennifer, it is so wonderful to have you on the show finally. We've been talking about it, and here you are. So thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe. It's good to be here.
Good. Well, we've got a lot of cool things to cover here. And by the way, she's going to be part of the 45th District, because Ohio is shifting the districts around. Don't ask me how that works. It's so convoluted. So you're going to be 45. And
that's right.
45 is kind of a cool number. I see a lot of hats with 45 on it. So that might be something you can find, and that's going to be kind of cool. So
that's right.
So anyway, so we'll just get right into it. Tell us a little bit about your background, where you come from, where you grew up, and how you got here.
Well, Joe, I like to say that I literally from the foundation came from Ohio. Both my parents were born and raised in Delaware, Ohio, and Marion, Ohio.
Okay.
And then my father took a job with the Federal Aviation Administration, and I was actually born in Washington, D.C. So I didn't really grow up anywhere. As they moved, I moved with them, and then I joined the Air Force, so I moved a lot. And then as an adult, 21 years ago, I moved back to Ohio. My parents were not here then, and I convinced them to move back to Ohio. So we're all back together, and unfortunately my dad passed away last year, but But my mom's still here, and I'm glad to have her close by.
Okay, great. So you did serve in the Air Force. I guess you are continually serving in the Air Force, actually. So tell us a little bit about why you joined the Air Force and some of your background there, because it's fascinating.
You know, it's funny. I was a sorority girl, kind of like our county treasurer.
Okay.
I was actually.
You saw that episode, okay.
I was actually in the same sorority, Zeta Tau Alpha, as she was.
Okay.
And so we're sort of connected that way. But so I was a sorority girl, and I've always been patriotic. My parents raised me with a dedication to our nation. And I'm so thankful they did that. So a strong patriot, sometimes very passionate. My parents are very mellow people. And I, right out of college, it was either join the Peace Corps or join the Air Force. And the people in the Peace Corps came back with worms and things like that. And the Air Force people were taken care of. And I really wanted to be a flight nurse. And so my recruiter was active duty. And everybody knows that recruiters are not always the most honest people or the most direct. And I could have gone reserve in St. Louis and flown as a flight nurse out of there. And he said, join, go active duty, you'll be a flight nurse. And the rest is history. I served 9 years active duty and 12 reserve, and I retired as a lieutenant colonel. I did my small part in a combat zone, which means that I'm considered a combat veteran, but I only did a small part compared to what some of my brothers and sisters did.
Well, thank you, because you served, and we really appreciate that.
I would do it again in a heartbeat, Joe.
I know you would. No doubt about it. With knowing you got a little fighting spirit there. So what led to you being such a strong conservative? Through your family, through the Air Force? Was it a combination of things?
You know, I think like a lot of people, we were talking before the show that we've all sort of evolved a little bit. You know, in college, I think that we get caught up in the, maybe for me, you know, being in a sorority and all the college clubs and going to class and doing all those things. And then I joined the military. Military in general, not always, is very conservative. And I think that as I saw the way we served in a very, the military has to do more with less. So I began my parents were very conservative fiscally and also socially, but they were actually Democrats. So you kind of do what your parents do. I was never a registered Democrat. I think I always just looked at our values. So fiscal responsibility, pro-life, pro-Constitution, living on our Constitution as a land of laws. And so that really, when you look at our Republican platform, if you look at me and you read the platform, that's actually who I am. And I would even say to those listening, if I'm not standing on our platform, you need to call me on it, because I really believe that I'm a true Republican. Those values that we stand on based on the Constitution, our Republican platform is based on our U.S. Constitution. So I really believe that as Republicans, we truly are the party of the people. We are the party that stands for our Constitution. What better place to be?
Absolutely. Well, there has been no doubt for your freshman term that you have been a strong conservative, and you've stood on the Constitution and very strong on some very important issues like the vaccine mandate and freedoms, other freedoms. Talk a little bit about your fight against vaccine mandates and those type of things in the State House.
You know, Joe, I'm also a nurse practitioner, and one thing that really became evident to me, I was never what they call, this is a derogatory term, but people know the term anti-vaxxer. People that are against vaccines, that's a cancel culture term that people don't like to use. When I was approached to carry this bill, I realized that freedom was at stake. It wasn't so much for me, if you want to get a shot, get a shot. You don't want to get a shot, don't get a shot. Okay? But for me, you should have the choice as to what goes in your body and what doesn't. As a clinician, I would never say to you in my office, hey, you need to do, you have this diagnosis, you can have this, this, or this, but I've decided you will do this. When we cross that line and tell our fellow American, whether we're the employer, whether we are a school, that we have the right to choose what goes in your body, I feel like we are infringing on life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So what drives me always is freedom. And that's really what drove me into the bill. Never did I realize how big it would be. I don't even think I realized that it would become what I believe is now the #1 issue in Ohio. HB 248, the Vaccine Choice Anti-Discrimination Act, has taken on a life of its own. I've been labeled in many, many ways, but what I would like to be recognized, knowing that I carry as the only sponsor and the main sponsor of HB 248, I have 15 co-sponsors, but as the one who created the bill, I just want to be known as someone who fights for freedom.
Okay, great. And that bill has went through and evolved into different things, and we'll talk about that, I guess, a little bit later, about where it's at now, but I know you've really been in the midst of that fight all the way. And not only do you stand for constitutional rights, which you do, you're very business friendly. You're a Westchester, you represent Westchester and Liberty Townships, a lot of business coming out that way. You will be representing, as they change the district, Fairfield and Ross, a lot of business, and Morgan Township, where there's a lot of change out in Ross and Morgan Township coming, and business friendly in Fairfield. So tell us a little bit about your business positions and what you're doing to help with businesses and being business friendly in Ohio.
Well, you know, Joe, we are the 4th highest regulated state in the union. And I'm sure you've heard that from our Senator, George Lang.
George was on here talking all about it, absolutely.
And I just saw another evaluation today. You know, we're just under New York. That is not a place when it comes to regulatory stuff that we want to be recognized.
Right.
So we know that the more laws we make, the more regulation we make. And so regulation is not a friendly business place to be, high regulation. However, I mean, some regulation is necessary, right? We don't want to do bad things and create, problems for ourselves. But I always felt that our state needs to be so attractive to business. We need to do whatever it takes to be so attractive to business that if they don't come to Ohio, they can't. I never know how to say this correctly, but that they need to say, if I don't go to Ohio, I'm making a big mistake. So we need to be so attractive and remember that business is also employees. So we need to be so welcoming to the citizens in freedom and liberty in Ohio that they want to come here. But we also need to be deregulated to the point where we are irresistible to the people that are thinking about coming here. So that's really, I am just very big on freedom for business, but also freedom for the employees coming to work for those businesses.
Okay. Now, this is a place, and I always ask this question, this is a place where you can set the record straight for some things. You have some detractors, some critics. I guess I would say that you're not doing your job right if you don't have critics, not in politics. So you definitely have some, and they're out there. Look, can you take a moment to set the record straight on some things maybe that they're saying or getting wrong about you? Because a lot of things get said, and I know you, and I know some of the things that's said is not accurate. So can you take a moment to maybe set the record straight and let people know some truths?
Well, I will say that I haven't really heard them, so I don't really know. I honestly don't. I run the race keeping freedom as the #1 priority in the way that I represent District 52 and soon to be District 45. I think the biggest thing, at least in Columbus, has been that in relation to HB 248, that I am not willing to work with them, or that it's my way or the highway. That's actually not true. I actually sent out a letter to leadership saying that I was willing to work on the bill. I never got any amendments, though. So, if it wasn't written, it wasn't done. So I'll have people say, well, I was willing to work with you, but I never saw anything. I'm always willing. I think that if you shut people down in conversation, that's when you stop progress. So even if you're duking it out and you don't agree on policy, you need to keep that conversation going so that progress can be made. For me, I don't know. I'm not mean. I don't know. I'm 5'2", but I can't honestly. I don't know. Maybe you can tell me some of the things that my detractors are saying about me.
I don't spread non-truths, so that's okay. Yeah. And it's good. Maybe you don't see it. Maybe it's just good that you just keep moving forward. One of the things you mentioned, though, and you will go back to it. You said, some people were saying you were anti-vaxxer. I've never heard you say that.
Yeah.
We've talked about this on the show with other guests, and the position is it's about choice for vaccines, not telling people not to do it at all. And so that's one where I know they had wrong, and so there's an example.
I think when you carry a bill that's so emotionally charged like HB 248, that you can't help but have the people that, especially the left, I don't think it's I don't think it's our conservatives.
Yep,
I don't
you're
think
right.
it's Republicans. I think it's really the opposition that does not want all views to be heard. Me, I'm always standing for freedom. So everything that drives me, whether are we going to talk about the cat tax?
Yeah, we can talk, and we can go right into it if you want to. Yeah,
All
absolutely,
right.
please.
So even the cat tax, the commercial activities tax is a tax in Ohio that is a third tax. I call it a stupid tax. Am I allowed to say that on the camera?
You just did.
But because if you go to ohio.gov, it says for the privilege of doing business in Ohio, these businesses get the opportunity to pay a third tax. My used car guy, he pays $20,000 in a third extra tax every year because he sells so many used cars that he has to pay a third tax. We are one of 9 states, could be 7, I think the last I saw were 9 states, where you have to pay a third tax. If you're a business looking to come into Ohio and you're comparing Kentucky or you're comparing Michigan, and I don't think they have cat tax, you wouldn't necessarily come into Ohio because you've got to learn, I got to pay this third tax for doing business for the privilege of
Absolutely.
doing, yeah,
Absolutely, yes.
good.
A lot of people don't want that privilege.
Yeah,
I understand,
exactly.
sure.
And they don't even want to worry about it. They're like, you have to pay a third tax? Yeah, I don't know. If you make $150,000 in Ohio or more, the first tax bracket is only $150. But I would argue that then your liquor license is only $2,500, or there are different fees that you have to pay as a business owner depending on your specialty. But I think that a little bit of tax here and a little bit of tax there and a little bit of tax here means, nah, I don't think I'm coming to Ohio.
Right. It's adding up to a lot of tax. I know that auto dealer you're talking about, a family-owned business that's just trying to make it. And that's just not something that, they don't continue to pay taxes.
That's right.
It makes no sense.
That's right. That's right. So this was my way, and it was actually a suggestion from one of my Liberty Township trustees that came to me. He may actually testify for the bill. But he came and asked me, he said, Jen, would you do something about this? I said, if I'm elected, I will. And because I'm a woman of my word, I did exactly that. It was the first bill that actually, I think HB 221, which is a nurse practitioner, freeing up nurse practitioners from collaborative agreements with physicians. But 234, HB 234, which is the cat tax bill, was the second bill that I dropped. The third bill I dropped was 248.
Okay. Well, you've been very active in 2 years. I'll say that for sure. So, well, we see Ohio and the country, and we talked about some of this in the introduction, about some of the things that you're mentioning right now, about silencing voices and things like that. But Ohio right now is struggling. We were still the state that gave an 8-point victory to Trump. Yes. And we're still a pretty strong conservative state. But as we see the country, it just seems like common sense has taken a leave from us for a while. How do you see turning this thing around? Ohio and the nation as a whole, can we get back to conservative values and the things that we really truly believe in? Because I think that most people still believe in that in this country. I think the media is selling us a lot of bull.
Negative.
Right? Negative. They love the negatives, and they keep away the positive stories, and they certainly keep away the positive conservative voices.
Yes.
So where do you see this going?
Joe, everywhere I go, I look for hope. So if you've ever read that book, or looked at those books, Where's Waldo? And you look in the book and you're looking, no matter what the situation, no matter how hard it seems, I look for hope. And I like to say that I'm a hope dealer because there's always hope in the situation. I know, we're 39th in gas because of the way our gas taxes are and stuff like that, but we can do better. And when it comes to our regulatory restrictions, we're 4th. If we could get to 5 and then under the top 10 for that and be deregulated, there are so many places that I believe that is, the only time that we lose, Joe, is when we quit. As long as we keep driving, and as long as we keep fighting for our true conservative values, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, and keep driving, the only time we lose is if we quit.
Absolutely. I tell my kids that a lot. I never get upset with you for failing.
That's right.
But I do get upset when you don't try.
That's right.
And that's where you're going with it.
That's right. That's right. I have some trolls on Facebook, and they're like, "Yo, here you go, failing again." I'm like, "Well, I guess I learned again," but I don't really judge myself by liberal trolls on Facebook.
That's probably a good method of going forward. So, in the end, everything that comes at you, and you're a freshman and you're doing a lot and you're introducing bills and social media is out there and you have a lot of supporters on social media, I know that. But you also have detractors or, like I said earlier, somebody that's criticizing. What keeps you fighting? What keeps you motivated?
Well, honestly, I have a very strong faith. I really believe that, and I won't, I don't know that you want to give my Christian testimony on this, but that's where my true hope comes from. And, I was always that person that just roll up your sleeves and work harder. And this GA's been really tough. COVID's been really tough on our state. I think as a true leader, you cannot allow yourself to get down too long. You can wallow in it for a minute, but when the sun comes up the next day, you've got to get up and be positive and ready to go. And again, that doesn't mean you and I may disagree, although I don't know anything we disagree on, but maybe even people listening might say, well, I don't agree with her on this. I tell my husband that if you agree with me 70% of the time, since he agrees with me about 70% of the time, that if my constituents agree with me 70% of the time, I feel like I'm doing a great job. But I want to hear from them. I'll tell you, for me personally, I get a lot of energy. I meet with the district every month. I have a town hall every month. I have 25 to 45 people that come. I meet in my three different townships right now. Soon I'll meet in Ross Morgan and then Fairfield City and then Westchester when my district changes. I also send out a newsletter every month. I get my strength from hearing from my constituents, good or bad. I want to know because it shifts me. I have changed in a particular, there's a big issue coming and I want to hear from them about sports betting. But it looks like District 52 wants me to vote yes on that. I'm not a mother to the district. I'm a representative to the district. You guys give me strength. You give me strength because as long as I'm representing well, I'm going to do my best and I'm going to fight really, really hard. And there isn't a day that doesn't go by that you aren't on my mind and on my heart, and your freedom is number one to me, and it's really genuine. It's not made up for me. I think, as a combat veteran, we have our fellow brothers and sisters that died in Area 60 in Arlington. That's Afghanistan, Saudi Arabia, and Iraq. And I think that if we give up, then their deaths were in vain, and we should not give up. Even if we don't agree, even as Republicans, if we could just go together, I always believe, when you're on the right side, which is the Republican side, you're on the right side of hope. And we're on the right side of hope as Republicans. And I'm thankful to be part of this, and I'm thankful to be in this position.
Great.
And I thank you for your time today.
Well, thank you. It's been a great time. I know everybody enjoyed getting to know you better. I wish you the best in the 52nd and soon the 45th. However they change it.
That's right.
And thank you for being on. This was wonderful.
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you.
Jennifer Gross, thank you for joining us.